When you set your intention of, I want to make $1 million a year, and you say, okay, to make $1 million a year, you've got a profit model. This is partly skill set, but it's also partly mindset. And on my profit model, in order for me to make $1 million, let's keep it simple and say $5 million. I got to sell $5 million. How much am I selling today? 1.5. So now I've got this delta between 1.5 and 5. Immediately, the first question is, well, but how am I going to get there? The reality of it is you can put a strategy together that says, okay, here's what my business looks like at 5 million. Here's what my business looks like here. And now I got to bridge the gap between the two. The reality of it is you don't know exactly how it's all going to happen. And when you ask how, what you're looking for is you're looking for certainty. You're looking for a set pathway. Here's how the dots are going to connect. You don't know how the dots are going to connect. You have no idea how the dots are going to connect. And so when you can let that go and say, okay, I am fixed on my vision of $5 million, $1 million net. Okay, that's my vision. Who do I have to become in order to make $1 million a year?
You're watching the LeanScaper podcast, where landscapers come to grow. If you want the systems, stories, and strategies to build a lean, mission-driven company that your team loves working for, keep watching. Brian, welcome to the LeanScaper podcast for the first time. I'm a huge fan. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you too, Benji. Thanks for having me.
Why do contractors and landscapers more specifically so often default to this scarcity mindset? There's not enough work. I need to lower my prices. Like that kind of attitude. Why is that so prevalent?
You're just going right for the jugular now, aren't you?
Straight at it.
We're not even, there's no warm up. It's going right to that. A lot of it is that we were not brought up to believe in ourselves. Sometimes we weren't brought up to think about becoming wealthy, to becoming free. A lot of it, and the whole thing is go to school, get a job, start a family, get a house. That's not the type of thinking for us, for entrepreneurs. We chart our own course. We don't want anybody to tell us what we're worth. We don't want anybody to control us and tell us where to go and what to do. And funny enough, when we don't run a good business and we let some of that head trash come to us, we become slaves to a business. That freedom that we aspire to actually becomes elusive. Instead of having more freedom, we're actually working harder than ever. And so the part of it is you have to understand that it comes from when we were kids, and fear. It's just you just get scared. There's no other way to say it. The job is the job's going to cost whatever $20,000. You should know that in order for you to make real money on that job, you got to put a multiplier on that. Let's just say the multiplier is 2. So it's going to cost you 20, and you need a 50% gross margin to cover your marketing overhead and profit. And you just say, oh, no, nobody's going to pay that much money, but I need the work. I got to keep my crews busy, so I'll do it for 30,000. Well, that's fear. That's fear. And it's real, but there are ways to overcome it. And so it's an easy place to go to. And trust me, I've been a victim of this, a lot. It's something I still work on to this day. It's something that I think we have to constantly be working on. But I hope that answers the question. You got to work on, and I say this all the time, and you got to work on yourself. As an entrepreneur, the most important thing that you can do, the biggest investment or the best investment that you can make in yourself is in your education. It's in the people that you surround yourself with. It's in, being involved with you guys at LeanScaper. It's being involved with the Wealthy Contractor. It's listening to podcasts like this and to do all that you can to understand that, hey, wait a minute. people are, just as an example, people are willing to pay the price that you ask for. You just have to believe that you're worth it. You have to believe that you deserve it. And that was not something that was put into a lot of us when we were young. When you start to think about growing real wealth and making big money.
One of the things that we talk about a lot at our events, in our content, Mark our founder is a huge proponent of this, is the idea of stories. And if anyone's ever done the Landmark program, which is it's one of it's quite a popular personal development thing. I did it 5 or 6 years ago.
Powerful,
awesome thing, really powerful. I think they are really the people that made this paradigm or coined this term of stories. What are the stories you tell yourself? And stories are incredibly powerful forces. So if there's a story that comes from our childhood that a lot of contractors struggle with, and that makes them discount work, fear competitors, just operate from a place of scarcity, in your experience, because I know your own story, you've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other, and now you've helped hundreds of other people go from one end of the spectrum to the other. How do wealthy landscapers think differently about competition, think differently about margins?
Well, when it comes to competition, you really have to believe, and this is for everybody, you have to believe that there's more than enough work out there for all of us. One of the things, a good friend of mine, Brian Elias, built one of the biggest and most successful window replacement companies in the country, 1-800-Hanson's. And I remember that when I first met him and I first went to his office, and this guy's bigger than life. He's got no fear, none whatsoever. He even told me once, Brian, I just don't have that gene, And he did something very interesting. He said, Brian, any one of my competitors can come to my office. They can sit in my call center. I will give them my scripts. I'll give them my sales presentations. I'll give them whatever they need in order to make their business better. And I thought, oh my God, I'd never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was always, oh no, that's the competition. But the competition, you can't look at them that way. The minute you start to believe that there's a finite number of jobs in the market, you're done. You're dead in the water, because then that means that it's almost by chance. Your success is almost going to be by chance. And whereas the beautiful thing about these businesses is that if you don't have leads today, all you have to do is pick a neighborhood and go start knocking on doors. Hey, I'm Brian from Brian's Landscaping Company. We're working around the corner in the neighborhood, and I just wanted to stop by and say, so you could go out and you could make an opportunity that didn't exist. Those people didn't wake up this morning and say, oh, I'm going to call a landscape company. I'm going to redo my backyard or my front yard. You have the ability to go out and make a lead. And so a wealthy contractor knows, I'm not going to, I can go out and make my own opportunities every day. And so that's going to be the biggest difference.
One of the things that I think is a real blessing of this industry, and you almost wonder if this is what attracts the type of people to landscaping or construction or roofing that indeed fall into it, is you can elbow grease your way to growth in a way that's truly unique in this industry that you can't with a brick and mortar business, that you can't with a lot of other service providers.
Mm-hmm.
You can knock doors, you can do it. There's all these campaigns and tactics, and there's effort that you can put in that, depending on how efficient and how well designed and how good you are, will translate into a result, sometimes better than others. But there's a lot of businesses that, like, you don't even have that lever to pull. You just kind of like start a bakery, and the people that show up, you hope shows up, and maybe put some ads on Instagram, and maybe you put a sign out front, but there isn't actually that much available to you to force growth into the system. And I think that's there's a lot of things that people love to gripe about and complain about and say this is a hard business, and it is. Landscaping is a really, really difficult way to make money, but sometimes it's good to reflect on there are some features of it that are actually kind of unique and kind of good, and that's definitely one of them.
Absolutely.
So, You talk a lot about this idea of the two sides of the coin, Brian. You've talked about this from stage. I see it in your materials. When you're thinking about the wealthy contractor mindset, there's a skill set to it and there's a mindset to it. And I wonder if you can just unpack both, because in today's conversation, I really want to kind of dig into each, but talk about what you mean when you say the skill set of profitability and the mindset of profitability.
Yeah. So, and I think that it's like a 90-10 play. Okay. So I think 10% skill set, 90% mindset for the entrepreneur, for the owner. Skill set. So skill set is your ability to make leads, your ability to convert those leads into sales, your ability to get that work installed, and your ability to do the admin and the paperwork and, stay legal and all of that. Every one of those things you can rent, you can hire, you can borrow, you could lease, you can automate, delegate, and find people that do that job better than you. What you can't do, and you can't hire, and you can't borrow, and you can't lease, and you can't automate, and you can't delegate, is how you think about yourself in the business. So if we take somebody like, he's an extreme example, but if you take somebody like Brian that I just mentioned, he thinks big. He thinks big. He doesn't think, okay, how do we get, 10 leads next week? How do we get 10 leads an hour? How do we do, just add zeros to everything?
Right.
And
the scale is so much bigger.
Yeah. And that causes you to think differently and look for different solutions. And so, it's like when we look at sales, let's say, when you get to about 1 million, 1.2 million, 1.3 million, and I think it's about the same in landscaping as well. In the window roofing one day bath, the area that we play in, it's about that level. What happens there is that the owner is the one that was out selling, and at a certain point, you just don't have the time anymore, the energy anymore, to go out and sell any more than 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, whatever the number is. It's somewhere in there, right? Because you have a job to run the business as well, okay? But so many people get stuck there. They get stuck there because nobody's going to do it as good as me. How do I find people that can sell? What kind of how am I going to train them? How am I going to manage them? How am I going to pay for them? Whereas if you, but on the mindset side, if you say, okay, well, look, now I got to go to 3 million, 4 million. If I can't sell, I need a selling system. So I'm going to go find a selling system. And then I'm going to either learn that system, which is what most people do. I'm going to learn that system. Then I'm going to hire people and teach them that system. Then I'm going to hire a manager to manage those people. Risky, scary. How am I going to do all of that? How am I going to go from what I'm comfortable with at running around every day, being busy, to now being in the office, being the owner, while my sales reps are out running leads? Completely different way of looking at the business, a different way of feeling about the business. And so if you can't get there in your head, you're going to stay stuck. And so that's why, to me, it's mindset really trumps skill set. Because again, skill set, look, I can give you a selling system. There's, you know this. You could go out, you can get them off the shelf now. It wasn't that way when I was coming up 20, 25 years ago. But nowadays, you get them off the shelf. I'm sure you guys probably have a selling system. Here's how you do it, step by step, right? So if you've got that selling system, okay, here's the selling system. Now your job, Mr. Owner, learn it, Go find people, teach them that system, ride along with them, make sure that they're doing it the right way. They may not do it as good as you, but that's okay because you're building a business. As long as they hit whatever your benchmark is, 1/3, 1/2, whatever the benchmark is, now you can grow. Now I go get my second sales rep. I got one, I can go get my second one. Then they'll say, this is where the fear comes in. Well, wait a minute, Brian. I don't have enough leads for 2 salespeople. But if you don't have the sales capacity, then you don't need the leads. And so now it's scary again. Now it's like, well, now what do I do? Well, now you got to market. Now you got to go invest and you got to drive leads into your business. Then you got to put somebody on the phone who can convert that inbound lead or the internet lead into an actual appointment that you can give to your salesperson. That's here. If I don't believe in myself and my ability to organize that and to manage that, it's not going to happen.
We're backing into this idea that you have coined of like wealth attraction for contractors. And when you're kind of going through the examples of the chain of thought that is triggered in the mind of a contractor when they think about expansion or growth or the next step, a lot of those questions start with the word how. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How am I going to get the leads? Right? Why, in your mind, is how the wrong question to start with? That's like, if the sentence starts with that word, we're approaching wealth attraction wrong. Can you explain that and maybe what a better way to frame questions for ourselves is?
So, would you personally put Steve Jobs in the top 10 of entrepreneurs that have ever lived?
I would, yeah.
Okay, I would too. Steve Jobs, okay? Now, I ain't no Steve Jobs, okay? He was an incredible guy. He said something that was really interesting. And he said, I'm going to paraphrase it, but he basically said, you can't connect the dots going forward. You can only connect the dots going backwards.
Looking back.
Looking back. Okay. So when you set your intention of, I want to make $1 million a year. Okay. And you say, okay, to make $1 million a year, you've got a profit model. Okay. This is partly skill set, but it's also partly mindset. I've got a profit model. And on my profit model, in order for me to make $1 million, I got to sell, let's keep it simple and say $5 million. I got to sell $5 million. How much am I selling today? 1.5. Okay. So now I've got this delta between 1.5 and 5. Immediately, and by the way, this has cost me and hurt me in my own, especially when I was younger. The first question is, well, but how am I going to get there? The reality of it is you can put a strategy together that says, okay, here's what my business looks like at 5 million. Here's what my business looks like here. And now I got to bridge the gap between the two. The reality of it is you don't know exactly how it's all going to happen. And when you ask how, what you're looking for is you're looking for certainty. You're looking for a set pathway. Here's how the dots are going to connect. You don't know how the dots are going to connect. You have no idea how the dots are going to connect, And so when you can let that go and say, okay, I am fixed on my vision of $5 million net. Okay. That's my vision. Who do I have to become in order to make $1 million a year? Who do I have to become? Yeah. What do I have to believe? And how do I have to behave? That is what is going to get you there. The minute you start to resonate at a different level and you understand the why behind it, why do I want to make $1 million? How am I going to spend the $1 million? This is my thing. It's like, I want to know. Don't tell me I want to do 10 million in business. I don't care. I want to know, how much money do you want to make? Because you might not need a $10 million business. I want to know how much you want to make. Okay, great. You want to make $1 million. Great. Now, who do you have to become? What are the things that you have to do now in order for you to become somebody that makes $1 million? In the process of you doing that, opportunities, people will show up in front of you. Opportunities and people, money will show up. And then it'll be up to you to now say, okay, and recognize this opportunity and now implement that into the business. So for example, you guys do events. We have our big event coming up in February. And so somebody will say, okay, I want to do $1 million a year. I'm doing $1.5 million, making $150,000 a year. Okay, well, you could either, you see this advertisement coming for an event, and if, you're a LeanScaper and LeanScaper's doing an event, you better go. You better go. Because now that's going to be an opportunity for you to meet new people, to get new information, to create relationships, to have access to resources and tools that you don't have today. And so if you're really serious, you will take that opportunity and you will go. I'm just using that as an example. It's a simple example, okay? And so what happens, though, is people will say, well, yeah, but I can't afford it, or I don't have the time. Okay, well, then you're not really serious about your goal. Whatever the goal is, doesn't matter what the number is. Then you're not really serious. Because the opportunity is presenting itself, but you're not stepping into it.
There's like a hand reaching down from the heavens that you're not grabbing. It's very clear that there's an opportunity that's kind of offering itself to you. And you, based in your own fear, are kind of going, you know what, not right now. It's too scary. I'm like, what I'm hearing from like what you say about it all makes sense in hindsight, but it's really quite blurry, opaque. Like you can't see all of the steps in front of you. There's a component here that is, to use some big words, like really contingent upon some faith and some courage in something, and I think that people can brand that something differently depending on their own belief systems, but it's something that they have to have. Okay, I'm taking a plunge here and I'm just going to trust that as I take the next step, because I can't see all the steps, but I can see, I want to hire a salesperson. I definitely should make a job posting for that. And then I should get it live. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't see the whole sort of board game roll out in front of you, but you can see the next couple.
That's right.
And people don't take the first couple that they know that they should take because they can't see the ones after. So there's an element of like, I have faith that when I get off of this square on the board game and I step onto the next square of the board game, the next squares of the board game will appear at that point, but not sooner. And that I think conceptually is a big jump for people. So what have you found, like ritualistically, practice-wise, what do people need to do to actually start to conjure up that sense of courage, that sense of faith in themselves to take the plunge, so to speak?
It's really interesting. I didn't know that we were going to go to this place, but it's very interesting. Faith is the belief in something unseen. And you could use it positively or you could use it negatively. You could believe.
Most people use it negatively, by the way. Most people have a huge amount of faith in negative outcomes. There's actually no proof. There's actually no evidence that all the stuff we're scared about is going to end up in the cataclysmic way that these are just projections and guesses. And it's good to be mindful of, but there's no proof. So I'm sorry to interject, but like we absolutely utilize faith for the negative in our own lives. I would say like 90% of the time.
Yeah, because it's scary. It's scary. So let's go back to the $1 million example, okay? So think about all of the trash, the head trash that comes with that. Think about, what will my parents think of me? What will my friends think of me? What will the people at church think of me when I roll up in a new truck or a new Range Rover? What will they think of me when I move? My neighbors, what are they, who've been my friends for years and years and years, when I tell them, oh, we're moving to this, we just bought a new house in the next neighborhood, the $1 million house neighborhood. What are they going to think? And this may not be consciously happening, but subconsciously, which is where all of this stuff stems from, subconsciously, there's a fear that my friends aren't going to like me anymore. My parents aren't going to like me anymore. I mean, I had to deal with the whole parents thing. My parents are two of the most beautiful human beings you'll ever meet. But they had issues around, quote unquote, rich people. And so for years, there was like this battle, I guess, inside of me of, well, but I want to be rich. But then something inside said, but if you get rich, your mom won't love you anymore. How crazy is that? But that's the kind of stuff that's going on. And so when you bring this topic up, and again, it goes woo-woo-y, but this is where you have to work on yourself. So ritualistically, what do you have to do? You have to change that story in your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is not easy to change. It has a job. Its job is to keep you safe. That's it. Safe is your comfort zone. Now, I've said this to people a lot, and some people have a really negative reaction to it, but you may be broke, living paycheck to paycheck, not knowing how the hell you're going to make your next payment, and yet that is comfort for you because you know how to navigate that. You know the stress. You know what it feels like. But what if you had 6 months worth of money in your account? You never had to worry about a bill again. You put everything on auto pay and you never had to worry about a bill again. That's not easy. That's a hard thing to reckon with. It's like, oh my God, that would be amazing. And so you have to reprogram. It's a computer program that you have to reprogram. How do you reprogram it? You rewrite the story. And there's lots of things that you can do. I mean, there's affirmations, there's meditations, I made a list of all the things I had to do for myself. There was 14 things on that list. Now, I'm a slow learner.
Give us 5. Give me a few more. You said affirmations, meditations.
Landmark was one. Was one. The happy and grateful exercise is a big one. You write out your income goal. I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm earning. And there's a process to that. Therapy. Coaching. So I work with a coach and, he gives it to me when I'm going down the wrong hole. His job is to bring me back. Affirmations. So you tell yourself over and over again, let's say you want to make $1 million a year. So I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm earning $1 million a year. And you just say this to yourself over and over and over again so that it overwrites the negativity that comes up whenever you're thinking about making more money. I was going to say a big one, and this is something that I have every one of my clients do, and even it's a tool that we offer, the 4 numbers exercise. It's like one of the things that I wish I had done when I was younger, when I was first starting off in business, was to say, okay, you want to make a lot of money. What's a lot of money? How much is a lot of money?
It's a great question.
A lot of money doesn't mean anything to your subconscious mind. Now, $1 million or 500,000 or $10 million, that means something. Your subconscious mind, it's definite. But then you have to know, well, what am I going to do with it? How is it going to change my life? And then you have to start to live in your head from that place, as if it's already on its way. And this is where belief comes in. This is where faith comes in. You have to believe in the unseen. You have to believe in God, the universe, infinite intelligence, providence, whatever you want to call it. But there is a power out there, and we don't quite understand it. But we know that this is how it works. It works through energy. It works through frequency. And so that's where you have to, that's the work. To me, that's the work, especially for people like me. And I think I'm probably more like the majority of people listening to this than the exceptions, like a Brian who has no fear. Brian's just like, oh shit, I'll go. Yeah. He's got money coming from here and there and everywhere. It's like, I'm just big, no fear.
You talk about like, I work with a coach and he kind of steers me back this way when I'm headed down the wrong path. There's something that I've learned about this type of work over the last few years, which is the reason that they call it a practice is because it takes practice. It's not an event, and it's actually not like a piece of software that you install and put on your hard drive and then you're fixed forever. It is something that you have to tend to constantly, and if you don't, there's this gravitational force in the universe that sort of it pulls us down towards cynicism and scarcity and negativity unless we sort of, it's almost like we're sort of in this life raft, but the life raft has a bit of a hole in it, and so you need to keep blowing into the life raft to stay afloat. And if you stop, the thing's going to start to sink a little. Okay, so the metaphor, it won't take long to finish, but if you don't maintain a certain volume of air in this lifeboat, if you don't maintain a certain energetic frequency inside yourself through the practice, there's that word again, and people select the rituals that work for them. It might be meditation, it might be therapy, it might be prayer, probably some combination of all those things. If you don't do that, the gravity will catch up with you. And I've noticed time and time again, I'm still learning this. And I know this stuff. I've read the books. I've done the work. I've gone and done the retreats in Peru. Like I've done, and I still am surprised that I forget about it. And it's like, oh, you know what? If I fall off track with my rituals and my practices on this, sure enough, about 3 months later, I notice my attitude is very scarce. I'm playing scared. I'm worried about this. I'm nervous about that. And sure enough, if I do 3 weeks of my rituals again and I blow air back into the life raft, it's like, we're good and we're off to the races. But the point I'm trying to underscore here, I'm being long-winded, is there's a maintenance component to this that I think people forget about. And what they want it to be is a pill where it's like, oh, I learned this lesson and I'm good now for the rest of my life. It's like, no, you learned this lesson enough to put some activity in place for a short period of time, and that got you to a certain place. But if it's not sustained, that gravity is going to catch up with you.
So you're in good shape.
Thank you.
Did you play competitive sports when you were younger?
People don't believe this, but I was a swimmer.
A swimmer.
So
okay.
Yes, I very, very competitive. Yeah.
Yeah. So in order to develop your body into a world-class swimmer, did you just jump in the pool once, swim the lap back and forth, and say, okay, I'm good, I'm a world-class swimmer now?
No, it was 9 workouts a week. 4 of them were at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
For 10 years.
Yeah, that's the swimming one is brutal. I don't even know how anybody chooses that, because it's to me it sounds
so hard.
Like
it's
torture.
So hard.
But the point is that if you're going to work that hard every day to develop your body, what are you doing to develop your mind? You want to be a world-class entrepreneur. Forget world-class. You just want to be a great entrepreneur that does a few $1,000,000 a year, makes a great living for you and your family. You live in a nice house. Your partner, spouse is well taken care of. They have everything that they need. Your kids are happy. They have what they need. They go to a good school. You're there for them. Even that requires practice. It requires work on yourself. So you're going to the gym for an hour, which I know, your guys, it's funny, their workouts are all day, running around job to job. But a lot of, the owners are in the gym every day. Well, you're spending an hour on your body. Why aren't you spending an hour on your mind? It's the same thing. It's a muscle you're building.
So I take this a level further, and I actually think if you get really good, is you do both at the same time. Ed Milet talks about this a lot, this
Yeah.
hybridized approach, where it's like when
Yep.
I'm working out, I am like doing deep meditation and super
Yep.
focused. I have like a very specific playlist. Yes, I'm working out hard and I'm sweating, but I'm also like I'm thinking about what I want. I'm doing kind of affirmations in my mind. And I think that if you can get to that place of mastery, you're in a really good place. Talk about like stacking productivity. But whatever it is for you, I think here, I want to give people a piece of advice that's just very personal to me. I think sometimes people get in their own way on this stuff because it's woo-woo. And it's like, okay, I'm a contractor. I have a jacked up truck and I'm muscular and I'm macho. I shouldn't, by the way, this isn't a gender thing. There are many super successful female leaders of business, of these businesses as well. So I'm being stereotypical. I get that.
Sure.
But, so you have this sort of like this certain personal brand that you espouse and you are to the world. And the idea for you of like sitting in your truck in the morning, like saying, I love myself, I'm the greatest, like feels kind of Brian. You're like,
really?
This is really,
oh, it's nuts.
like I'm an idiot.
I mean, look,
it's nuts.
It's nuts. It's nuts. And it's so easy to avoid doing it.
Right.
But if you want to be in the top 1%, forget the half of 1% or the quarter of 1%. If you want to be in the top 1%, if you're not born with it, which most of us aren't, it takes work. It takes work. That's why, look, the 80-20 rule is it's a law of nature. Okay, 20% of your effort is going to produce 80% of your results. 20% of your customers is going to produce 80% of your profit. 20% of your leads are going to produce 80% of your sales. On and on and on. What people don't realize is that the 80-20 rule doesn't stop at 80-20. It keeps going. So it goes from 80-20. Now you take that 20 and you go 80-20 on that, you get 96-4. You go on the 4% and you go 80-20. Now you get the 1%, the evil, what used to be the evil 1%. I hated that, by the way. But that's what that is. And so the majority of people, 80% of the people, aren't going to do the work. 20% will do some of the work. But now in that 20%, 4 of them are going to take it and they're going to take it to the next level. And then you've got the 1% that it's like, if I don't do this, every day, I'm not going to be able to continue growing and be the person that I need to be for my family, for my business, for my team, and for my community. And that's why you have such disparity also with business owners. I mean, why is it that 2 landscapers in the exact same market, that have been in business the exact same amount of time, one person is doing $10 million a year, netting 20%, and the other one is struggling to get to $1 million, is in debt, they drive a beat-up old truck, and their wife is mad at them all the time.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference? The difference is the work that they're doing up here. This is why, to me, again, it's 90% mindset, 10% skill set.
Brian, I wanted to, so my advice for people that are blocking themselves from doing this because it feels off-brand or it feels cheesy, pick your word. We'll just call it whatever you want to call it in your mind's eye. I know I did for years. I think a useful unlock for me was realizing that there's no rule that says that this has to be from a certain book or a certain dogma or a certain faith. Now, if you go to church or you're a part of organized religion in some way, a lot of this stuff is given to you by your scripture, by your community, and like that's beautiful, like awesome. Like you've got a version of this that works for you. Lean into that. If you're a person who doesn't go to church, that's fine too, like 100%. But maybe like find a version of the same brain hacking, algorithm hacking tools that work for you. Like you can design this yourself. Benji, I'm not making this. I have my own 5-step process. I call it quantum protocol. I sit down, I do 10 big breaths. I do 3 things of gratitude and I linger on each for about a minute. Then I do a 50 breath meditation. Then I do a pretty detailed and visualization of stuff I want long-term, stuff I want short-term. Then I do the affirmations. Those are the cheesiest, by the way, but I swear they work the best. And then I do a prayer, and I pray for other people. I wrap. The whole thing takes me 15 minutes. I usually do it in the sauna after a workout. Sometimes when I'm out for a run, I'll pause and I'll take my shoes off and I sit on the grass and I do it there. I probably do that 3 times a week. I made that for myself because it was the only version. It was the only version that didn't feel corny and cheesy. And so now that it feels like mine, I'm like, okay, well, this is accessible. Because before, someone was telling me to listen to some audio tape from the 1990s about self-love, and I'm like, this is dumb. Like, I don't want to do this. But if I can kind of write it for myself, all of a sudden this feels kind of cool and it feels unique and it feels my own. And so I say all this to say if you're not tapping into this because you don't like the brand that it's being fed to you in, write your own.
Yeah, because there's no other way. You're not going to be able to muscle your way through it. It's just, I don't know how it works. And I fight it. I fight it too. And I have my rituals too that I do. And it's tough. It's tough.
I want to ask you this, and this is a really interesting idea to play around with. If you have a quick answer, I'll fit in a few more questions. If this takes us to the end, it takes us to the end. But I think I want to ask you, okay, there's this thing with blue collar business owners that is, they're very like service oriented. They're extremely humble. They care a lot about their customers and their people. I'm going to say the 98% of people running small businesses in Canada and the US are that way. There are definitely a few kind of snaky characters.
80-20.
We all know who they are. I think it's like 96-4. I think most people are really genuine, sincere.
Yeah.
And they're coming to their business from a place. I know that this is the case for our listeners because I'm in the rooms at our events and I talk to these people and I know their companies and I know their teams. So there's this very like humble and servant mindedness that I think is a really noble and beautiful thing that I don't want people to lose. I don't want people to lose track of that. What I want to do is keep that, but sprinkle in a little bit more of this wealth attraction, self-belief. I have a core value, which is a little swagger goes a long way. I want people to sprinkle some of that in without losing that really like grassroots and beautiful aspect.
But, here's the reality of it. It's like money. People think that, well, if I make a lot of money, I'm going to turn into an...
Right.
And my question is always, are you now? No. What makes you think money is going to make you an... Money is an amplifier. If you're an... It's going to make you more of an... And you know those people and I know those people. They made they were an to begin with. They made a bunch of money and they became a bigger. But you're right. The majority of the people in these businesses are good, honest, decent, honorable, ethical, moral people.
Mm-hmm.
And they care.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is, and I don't think they lose that once they become successful. The challenge is not to conflate the two. The challenge is to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to become a bad person by becoming successful. And all of the way that they operate, that's their culture in their business. So if they care about their customer, then they care about their people because their people are taking care of their customers. And so I think that this stuff goes hand in hand. And again, I've only seen, and I have seen a lot of people over the last 10 years go from having no money to becoming millionaires, to becoming multimillionaires, to becoming financially free. I've seen a lot of it happen to us, I haven't seen one person in that situation, not one that I know of, that it's in my circle, that became a bad person. In fact, most of the time, they're just the same people. They just got more options, Some people flaunt their wealth. Some people don't. Some people have big egos, and if you have a big ego at the beginning, you'll probably have a big ego later. But then you learn to temper it, maybe, But that's some of the subconscious stuff that stops people from getting where they really think they want to go.
Yeah. I want to ask you this to close. With high performers and people that are playing big, they're thinking big, they're and not just I'm a dreamer and I've got visions of the future, but I can't really execute. People who are genuinely working their tails off to build the vision in their mind's eye. One of the things that we do is what I call goalpost moving. So we have a goalpost, we have a target, we get there, and if we even take a second to enjoy it, we enjoy it for like a day, and then the next day the goalpost is further, and it's not just like a little further. Often it's like an order of magnitude bigger. It's like, well, I made 10, now I need to make 100. Like we do this to ourselves. Yeah, guilty, exactly. What is your advice? And by the way, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think that that's sort of like a part of the ambitious mind. Yeah. But one of the negative consequences that a lot of high performers that fall into this category struggle with is looking back. There's the Steve Jobs thing again. Looking back, they don't actually enjoy the journey as much as they think they should have. So is there anything that you found useful for us goalpost movers to just like be a little bit more present and enjoy the journey up the mountain along the way?
I'll tell you what I'm working on, because I'm one of those people. I'm one of those. I'm a goalpost mover. And I have a very hard time. We run EOS, and one of the ways that every level 10 weekly EOS meeting starts is with personal professional win from the week. I am so bad at coming up with that stuff, because to me, if I have a win, 3 minutes later, I've already forgotten about it. I'm on to the next thing. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's a little destructive. There's this great book based on a concept by Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach called The Gap and the Gain. And when you move the goalpost, essentially what you're doing is you're pushing out your satisfaction, your happiness. Now you're saying, well, I got here, but yeah, that's not it. I got to go here. And it's an impossible goal. You'll never, ever get there, because it's constantly moving. It's a moving target. And so the concept of the gap and the gain is, instead of measuring your life through the gain, where I am to where I want to go, why don't you measure your life from where you started to where you are today? And why don't you look at what you've accomplished? Now, look, I'm talking to myself here too. It's because I have a very hard time doing this, because I'll be like, well, okay, yeah, big deal. I did that. So what? Now I got to go do this. But that's not healthy. But like you said, it's how we're wired. If you're an ambitious person and you want to just go and succeed and win, and especially like someone like you who's you came up in competitive swimming. I didn't do competitive sports. I wish I had. I think it would have given me more of an edge.
I can't believe that. I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
You did not do sports as a kid?
No, I did not. And I wish I did, because it gives you an advantage, I think. It's like there's a game that you're playing, and there's drills that you have to do, and then you got to get your mind right so that you can actually perform during the game. And then at the end of the game, it's very clear, we won or we lost. Very clear. There's no in between, unless it's soccer. or football, as they call it. But it's you guys probably call it football too up there, right?
No, we're team soccer.
Oh, you're soccer.
Football's
Okay.
a UK thing.
But
Yeah.
anyway, but there's a win in there. It's very definitive. There's win, there's lose. Very definitive. And so I think that helps, with some of this. But at the same time, it's like, you got people like, the best in the world, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, who are just like, I got to go crush and I got to win every single time, every single day. And that you got to have a lot of energy for that. You got to have a lot of energy for that. And anyway,
so
I think that answered.
looking back,
I don't know if that answered the question or not, but
no, you did. You it's the gain and not the gap. It's orienting your mind to look at the progress that's being made a little bit more than you're looking at the gap that's still in front of you. And that is not always easy. You do the wins at the beginning of the meeting. Great. One of the things that I think is really, really helpful is you do this as a business. So if you're a leader, you do this with your teams, would be some kind of annual offsite or retreat that is not where you're not doing slides and intense work 12 hours a day. You do a couple hours in the morning, you do some vision stuff in the morning, and then you kind of just hang out together. I think is really, really good as a team. And we, here in the West, we're so bad at doing that. And I think that there's a human, just an individual component, or if you're in a relationship, you're leading a family, you do that with your partner or your kids one day, where it's just like, and I'm not just saying sort of a go to Cabo for the week. It's a little bit more intentional version of that, where you go to a cabin in the woods or a house on the beach, or a camp up in the mountains, and you just kind of sit there and reflect on the 12 months that just happened, and sort of look back in the calendar and what was I thinking about and what was I feeling and what were the challenges I was dealing with back 12 months ago, and where's my mindset at now. And every time that I do that, I'm usually pretty stunned at the progress that has been made. And then with that sort of, I use that to inflate myself, not in an egotistical way, just in a way to like generate confidence. And then I turn around and I go, okay, so the year ahead, what are the things that I really want to do? And then you can focus on the gap again. Yeah.
That's healthy, though.
It's a really good ritual.
Yeah,
Look back a little bit first. It's sort of like the spiritual version of budgeting. You're like, when you build a budget, you're like, where did I overspend last year? Where did I underspend last year? Why was my gross profit 2 points off and my net profit 3 points off? Let me find the winners and the losers in the spreadsheet. And you find them and you go, okay, with that information understood, with some historical benchmarking to work from, let's now design a plan for next year. People know this ritual, hopefully know this ritual. If you're listening to this podcast, like you know how to do that for a business, and there's an inner work version of that for you as a human being. And it's sort of the same thing. Look back first, then build the plan. And I think that one gets you to make way better decisions of what you put on your plate versus what you don't. But two, back to my question, I think it helps you enjoy the journey a lot more. Brian, let's leave it at that. This is a great place to bring it in for a landing. I love these conversations. I always prepare these roadmaps. I ask 2 questions from it, and then we just go off on a way better direction anyway.
One thing, let me add one final thing to this. We're talking a lot about, we talked a lot about mindset. We talked about wealth attraction. We talked about being a good owner, being a good person, caring about your thing. One of the big things I'll say to your audience and anybody that's in a service business in home improvement, if you are your word, you do good quality work, you care about your customer, you make sure they have a good experience, you come in on budget, you come in on time, you deserve to make a profit, and you deserve to make a good profit. Because when you go and you improve somebody's home and you do it in a way where they're happy with it, and even better, if they're thrilled with it and they just love what you did for them, you deserve to make a profit. And too many people lose sight of the fact that, hey, wait a minute, I'm here in business to make a profit. And the way that I make a profit is by solving my customer's problem. And my customer's problem could be, well, they have a really ugly backyard. They want a swimming pool. They want somewhere for their kids to go and play, and they want it to be beautiful, right? And so if you're the company they trust and you did a good job for them, you deserve to make a good living from that. And the more you do it and the bigger you do it and the more customers you serve, you deserve to get wealthy from it. And hopefully that helps some people. I think some people have an issue with like, well, do I really deserve this? Yeah, you do.
You've said it all, Brian. I'd love to have you come speak at one of our events one day.
That'd be fun.
Circle back to you in the new, probably sooner, but we've got stuff in the new year. Where can people follow along your journey? What are you up to? Where's kind of the best place to reach out or connect, or just kind of keep tabs on what you're up to with the Wealthy Contractor and everything else you guys do?
The best place to go is thewealthycontractor.com. Thewealthycontractor.com. Everything's there. We've got resources. We've got podcasts. We have the events. Everything is there.
We will link that below. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, Benji.
We'll see you again soon.